Welcome back. Our next guest moved to Japan when she was 6 months pregnant because of her husband's job. What she experienced after having 3 babies overseas inspired her to take a look at parenthood support programs around the world. Joining us now is Abigail Leonard. She wrote this new book. It's called For Mothers, an intimate journey through the first year of parenthood in 4 countries. Welcome. It's so great to have you joining us, Abigail.
Thank you. It's so good to be here.
Great to have you. Okay, so I'd love to know just your overall thoughts about parenthood, especially that first year of parenting in the United States as it relates first to Japan.
Yeah, it was interesting because I started in Japan. I had my 3 kids there. And so that sort of became normal to me. And, people there, mothers get a year of maternity leave, and there's all sorts of supports for mothers and these great community centers. So I was sort of used to that. And then I came back to the US, and it was just a very different calculation for a lot of the moms here. Very committed mothers, very, trying to spend time with their kids, but it was just more difficult in a lot of ways. And that was sort of what inspired me to write the book, to sort of think about how this, the first year is really hard for a lot of people. And just sort of thinking about how it could be made easier and how other countries had sort of thought about this.
I know you looked closely at Japan, Kenya, Finland, and the United States. One of the words that comes to my mind when I think about having my 3 kids, especially that first one in that first year, is just complete overwhelm. And I wonder, do you notice that experience is similar between the 4 countries?
Oh, completely. I thought it was so fascinating to see how similar the sort of emotional experience was. So I had, like you said, I was following women, and, this one woman in Kenya, she was in Nairobi. It was just a very sort of busy city, all this sort of stuff. And then I followed a woman in Utah. It was a very different experience for her. But I think the first words out of their mouth when they had a baby were exactly the same. It was, I can't believe I'm somebody's mother now, and just this feeling of like, what happened? Both of them were sort of preparing, and they knew this was coming, but just this sort of, yeah, as you said, overwhelm and shock of it. And I think it took probably that whole first year for them to really sort of, both of them I watched as they sort of became more comfortable in that role. And, but it really was sort of nice for me to see how similar it was sort of across cultures and around the world. And, it's not, you're not weird, or, these things are totally natural to feel, these feelings of being overwhelmed. Yeah.
Yeah, very universal. I love the point that you make throughout your book that policies and different cultures, all those things sort of shape that first year of motherhood. But I was also struck by the fact that you mentioned that women in Japan have a year of maternity leave. I think that's something here in the US that's really challenging for new moms, is how limited the time is in many cases, and not necessarily mandated that it be paid if they have a job.
Right. Yeah, that's true. So in Japan and Finland, it's a full year. In Finland, it's close to a year. Um, and in Kenya, it's 3 months guaranteed paid leave. So all the women I followed had more paid time off than the woman in Utah who had, she got 3 months, but it wasn't fully paid. And so for her, it was sort of more of a financial struggle to get through that time. And then also when she went back to work, she was like pretty exhausted. And, even just the sort of breast pumping that a lot of American women do, the women in Japan and Finland never did that because they were with their babies that first year and then sort of transitioned back to work. And it was just a sort of more seamless, easy transition, I think, between sort of the home life and the professional life. And so it did make me realize how these sort of broader policies impact your day to day and your experience of parenthood, this sort of fundamental experience that, all the women found joy in, but I think it was just a lot more relaxing in places that had more support.
Yeah, I think about because I was in the news business when I had my oldest daughter and was committed to breastfeeding. And I used to use a breast pump between long commercial breaks, between segments, and run to
Yeah.
a bathroom in our basement at the station. So it's just fascinating. We're running out of time. I'm fascinated by your book. I just wonder if there's any takeaway here that you might share with us about sort of broad, family friendly policies that you've seen maybe in other countries, things that we could take from that and learn here in the US to be more supportive of women, especially postpartum.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, paid leave is obviously a big one. I think childcare is huge in the US. I think the cost of childcare is a burden that families feel every day, and it's a reason some families don't have as many kids as they would like. So, thinking about ways, I think to advocate at the local level is really important. The Chamber of Mothers is a group that does a lot of good work on this. So, it's not your individual responsibility to bear, is what I would say. It's a collective responsibility. And so, just thinking about family-friendly policies and dads too, this helps them. So, everyone should sort of get on board, I think, and think about ways that we can make life easier for families here in the US.
Abigail, thank you so much for joining us and thanks for your wonderful book.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great.
Absolutely. And again, Abigail Leonard's book called For Mothers comes out next week on May 6th. You can find it online wherever books are sold.